Hoop Heads Podcast. It's Mike Klinzing here with my co-host Jason Sunkel tonight.
Mike, it's a great night.
Why
Late
is
night,
that?
late night Cavs hoops, baby.
All right.
Late night Cavs hoops. The next, three games, right? They play tonight. They play tomorrow night, and they play tomorrow night at Sacramento, which Sabonis is ruled out already, and Friday night against the Suns. Yeah, that'll be a fun game to watch. I'm excited to watch that.
Be 3 wins. The Suns, what a dumpster fire the Suns are.
Like this is theoretically their toughest game tonight, right? I mean, they're playing. Clippers are playing everyone tonight, so Kawhi included. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. We're recording. It's literally halfway through the first quarter. The Cavs are winning 18-12. So that's where we're at right now, Mike.
Clippers are red hot, baby. They won 3 in a row.
Well, they won six. They lost six of. They lost 6 of 7, and then now they've won 6 of 7. So they're the definition of hot or not, apparently, in the NBA. Okay, Mike, I have an update on the NBA totals.
All right, go for it.
I'm up 28 still. the
Well, I'm
lead is
I'm out of the I'm out of the 30s, right? I was with the
yeah
30s
yeah
for a
you
while.
you it
So
was 32 and now it's 28. So congrats.
all
I
right,
don't think there's enough time for you to make it up, Mike.
probably not. Probably
I'm
not.
looking for I'm looking forward to that pizza at Head Start basketball camp one day.
Yep,
We'll
we're gonna
we'll
do it.
we'll smash a pizza at Head Start basketball camp in front of the kids while we're trying to do stations. How does that sound, like?
That
First
sounds
day,
great.
your
Love it.
introduction to Head Start basketball
Oh, I
camp,
love it.
kids.
I love it. I'm in. Count me in. Count me in.
All righty. Okay, so we have three main or four things that we're going to primarily talk about. Two will kind of go together. We're going to start with the injuries, and maybe this can lead us to a discussion, Mike, about are these injuries of like real, like I want to say real injuries, but like injuries that could have been played through, or are these tank injuries that they decided, you know what, we're tanking anyway, so let's just have the injuries situation happen. Okay, so the first injury happened right after we recorded last week. Fox is out for San Antonio. His pinky, right? It's his pinky. His pinky. He's having surgery. He's out for the season. Now, San Antonio obviously already lost Wemby. They're kind of, you know, just they were on the border, so they were theoretically trying to contend for a playoff spot. But they said, let's slow the roll, Fox. You're gonna get surgery. We already lost our big guy. Let's have everyone be healthy. Do you buy that this was a necessary surgery, or is this a we're trying to tank, we're shutting him down? He can. I mean, it's to give him a good excuse to sit out, Mike. I think this is a he's getting shut down because there's no sense. We don't want to be in the play-in. And I mean, I'm not accusing him of not having this injury. Okay, I'm not. I want to be clear here, Mike. I'm not accusing him, but if we were in a situation that Wemby's healthy and the San Antonio Spurs are in like the 7-8 spot, do we think Fox plays through this?
I think it's a legitimate injury. I think it's probably one that if they were in the playoff race and they wanted to be in the play-in race, that they would have De'Aaron Fox play through that injury, and maybe he's going to have surgery after the season. But clearly, in the position that the Spurs are in right now, it behooves them to fall down as far as they possibly can in the standings. Although, if you look, they really are pretty much locked into. I think they're have the eighth worst record right now because the Raptors are the next closest team, and they only have 24 wins. And although the Raptors are 6-4 in their last 10, I'm sure they're going to continue to try to do whatever they can to lose games, just like all these teams at the bottom are now quickly trying to accumulate as many losses as they possibly can. So I would think San Antonio is pretty much locked into the spot where they're at. But if you have De'Aaron Fox, there's always a chance that he could win you a game that you don't really want to be winning. So you're much better off rolling out there without De'Aaron Fox and therefore continuing to hold your position in the lottery. So, yeah, if the Spurs were in a regular season where they wanted to contend, for the playoffs or they were gearing up for a playoff run, I would guess that De'Aaron Fox probably could play through this injury and then have the surgery when the season ends. But at this point, there's really no reason for them to do that. They might as well just shut him down now, continue to pile up the losses, and hope that they get lucky in the lottery one more time and find somebody who can pair
Capture the
or
flag.
combine. Yeah, capture the flag. Cooper Flag would be probably about as perfect of a fit in San Antonio next to Wembanyama and De'Aaron Fox as you could possibly imagine. Although I'm sure they'd be fine with getting one of the two Rutgers guards as well to put next to De'Aaron Fox. So it'll be
What are
interesting to
their
see what
names,
happens.
Mike?
You have Ace Bailey, right? And the other guy is Ron Harper's son, Dylan Harper, right? Dylan
Okay,
Harper,
well,
I believe.
that's the first time I've heard Ace Bailey's name.
Okay.
So congrats, Mike. You've now tripled my or you've added a third name to the NCAA tournament that I know,
Okay.
because
Well, there you go.
you know I know nothing else. So, anyways, all right. So that's where we're at on that situation. Okay, so we want to move to the next injury, Mike. The next injury.
Wait, can I make a comment though first?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So, what's funny is that my college basketball knowledge
Okay.
obviously is nowhere near the level that it once was back in my illustrious past. But it still is amazing to me that you have Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper, who are two of probably, for sure, I think the top five draft picks in the NBA. And they are both playing at Rutgers, which obviously not a traditional basketball power. And yet they're going to produce two top five players most likely in this year's NBA draft. And then you have next year AJ DeBansta, who is probably as highly rated, if not more highly rated than Cooper Flag coming into the draft next year. And he's going to be at BYU. So it's amazing the way that NIL, the transfer portal, all the ways that college basketball has changed in terms of just where players go, why they go to certain places.
Yeah.
And it just looks completely different than it ever would have potentially looked in the past, where players with the pedigree of the guys that we just talked about, there's no way the guys like that are ending up at Rutgers or BYU. Let's put it that way.
Mike, it's a sad. Listen, this here's the thing, and I know I probably have said this before, but I know more D1 girls that are playing basketball than I know D1 boys, and I know
You
that's
know,
partially because I'm following like two girls who play for Olmsted Falls that are playing D1 basketball, and I know players on their team, and I went and checked out the BG Mac tournament game last weekend, like so I know more of the for that reason, but I don't know, it's just like I'm sitting here looking at a bracket that I have to fill out at some point tomorrow, and I have no clue. Like, the only clue that I have is uh that like, Duke and Florida are good, and after that I'm like, I mean, anyone else, and Duke's a Cooper Flag injury away from being like a 7 point swing on the spreads, because that's what it was in the ACC tournament against not good teams. So what is that going to mean against you know, an actually really good team? And I don't know. So I don't want this to turn into us discussing the problem with college basketball. That's a solution that you and I don't have or a problem that we don't have a solution for. And I don't think that at least I don't feel super educated to discuss it any further than I don't know what I'm going to do for my I might just go with some mascot picks or something for a few of the games, just or what teams have I gotten burned by in the past that I'm not gonna want, and flip a coin. Maybe I'll just flip a coin 63 times and see what happens.
well,
I don't know.
your odds of basing it on your knowledge versus flipping a coin or mascots or just going straight with chalk in every single game probably isn't much different, is the honest truth. And I don't mean just you. I'm talking about me, you, just about anybody. And yeah, the landscape of college basketball is
Yeah,
certainly much, much different. I think the solution to it is one that I think coaches are coming to the realization that you just have to continuously accept and adapt to what the changes have wrought, and you either have to be okay with them, or you probably have to move out of the way and either stop following college basketball or stop coaching college basketball or stop paying attention to it. Otherwise, you're going to drive yourself crazy. If you're trying to wish back into what it used to be, that those days are never coming back. And as much as you or me or any of us might want that to happen, that's not the direction that it's going to go. And so you have to just accept college basketball where it is and hope that the powers that be can continue to move this thing in the right direction, so that, here's what I'll say, there has to be a way for players to be paid, which I've always been okay with. But at the same time, there has to be some form of sense in the way that it can happen. So I don't know if you saw, there was a court ruling that, and again, I don't know how much this impacts exactly
I did
how.
not see anything about a
No,
court
I'm sure you
ruling.
did. But there was a court ruling that players now can be paid NIL money before they enrolled in a school. So previously they had to be in, they had to they had to be enrolled at the school before they could be paid NIL money. But there was a suit brought that
What the?
allows players, or says players can be compensated before. So I guess the idea here, and I'm only guessing because I just saw a very brief article. I didn't really look at any of the ramifications of it, but it sounded to me like what would happen is that now players can be given an offer of NIL, not that they weren't before, but I'm guessing that it just makes it more clear that you can be offered NIL money before you actually enroll in the school. I don't know if you can accept money. Let's hope not. But it just, the whole thing is a slippery slope. And
Okay.
I'm fine with players being paid, but they just let the cat, not only did the cat get out of the bag, but the cat just ran and scratched up the entire house after it got out of the bag. And I don't know how we ever put this thing back together.
No.
So, all right, let's leave our college basketball
Okay.
thoughts there.
Mike, I just
for
want
now.
to say I just saw one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life in this Cavs game. Okay. Simmons is playing, first of all. Fantastic. He drives the lane and he tries to throw an alley-oop pass at it. And Mobley just stuck his hand in the air and grabbed it,
There you
brings
go.
it down the court. Simmons picks him up at the three-point line, and Mobley's like, screw this guy, and just attacked him and scored. It was
All right, there you
fantastic.
go.
It was a great,
Nice.
it was a great 15-second stretch for Evan Mobley and Ben Simmons. So there you go. All right. The next injury, Paul George. I think this is hilarious for multiple reasons. He's had multiple injuries all year. So I'm not going to say that Paul George is not injured, because he's actually played through injury. And unlike his teammate who they gave a contract extension to, and there was no way he was going to see the floor. Like, anyways, Paul George, the reason I find it funny is that Paul George recently said he was going to take a break from his podcast and focus on win Philly a championship. This was basically after they're almost eliminated from the playoffs. I mean, they're not eliminated yet, but that's what he says. And now he's not playing. Listen, this is for sure. Like I said, he had a bunch of severity, a bunch of different injuries going on. I just don't know what Philly's doing. We can just, there's a lineage of injuries here. We got the Simmons, Fultz, Embiid, George. So really, arguably, their four of their best players six players that have played for them, right? Like in the last 7 years, have all had major injuries and injury problems. I mean, so I think the only two guys that I did not include, I don't think that Tobias Harris is one of the best six players. So I would say James Harden, when he was there, probably would be considered one of their best six players, and Tyrese Maxey. And Maxey's had a few small injuries, but nothing like super severe. So when you look at that and you say, these four guys have missed significant time, and like, what are they doing? It's like, I think I used the analogy that the Sixers are like the Browns of the NBA. Like they can't stay out of their own way. Someone gets hurt. They sign some guy to a ridiculous contract. I mean, I know the Deshaun Watson contract is a terrible contract, but this extension for Embiid, oh my God, this is terrible. And and I don't think there's any way for them to get out of it. So, and I can't, and we talked, I think, at length like 2 weeks ago about we don't know what team would be willing to try to even take on that contract. Like, I wouldn't think there's anyone. I mean, like, I don't know. I just think the George injury, him being out for the season, not super surprising. Um, they aren't even really have a chance to make the playoffs at this point. I don't think. I know they're what I don't know how many games behind they are, Mike, but at that spot 3, 4, 5.
They're 6 games behind
They're out.
Miami,
They're done. They're done.
who's
They're done.
lost who's lost 8 in a row, by the way. So Philly, I mean, the thing with the Sixers, you can talk about the snake bit nature of the franchise and the difficulties that they had with Embiid, with Fultz, with Ben Simmons. It's been not good in terms of injury luck, for sure. However, you can certainly have forecasted that Joel Embiid potentially could have gotten hurt if he wasn't already hurt when he signed the extension. Paul George has had an extensive history since he went to the Clippers of being injured. He's obviously a guy who has a metal rod in his leg from when his leg snapped in half when he was with the Pacers. And so I think that those injuries were anticipated. And yet at the same time, if you go back to the summer, the Sixers got a lot of praise for what they did. But right now, Philly's in a position where they have to continue losing games because they do not want to give up their number one draft choice to the Oklahoma City Thunder, which if they finish outside of the top 6, that pick will go to the Oklahoma City Thunder. And right now, as it sits, the Philadelphia 76ers are sitting in the 6th spot. So if the lottery were to hold the way it is now and nobody were to jump up into the top 6 from below, then Philly would retain their draft pick and they would draft number 6. However, if the season ended today and one team were to jump up into the top 4, that would bump Philly into the 7th spot, which would cause them to lose their pick to Oklahoma City, who,
So,
by the
Mike, here's
way,
a question. Here's a question. Knowing that Oklahoma City's a problem with all their picks, as a as a Cavs fan, and looking at the future landscape, do you want the Sixers to be outside the top 6 so the Sixers keep the pick, or do you want to enjoy the Sixers' misery? Which is
so
more important to you?
it's a fine line. What's funny is that you raised that question to me because I was driving home from work. I don't know if it was what's today, Tuesday? Yeah, today's Tuesday. Maybe it was either yesterday or Friday. It was very recently. And I had that same exact question pop into my head of there's a huge part of me that as I listen to people talk about that or as I read things about that, my natural inclination is to root for Philly to fall out of the lottery and or fall out of the top 6 and have that draft pick go to Oklahoma City. That's what I want to happen. But then I ask myself the exact same question that you just asked me, which is what I really should want is for Philly to keep that top 6 draft pick and for Oklahoma City not to move up and get the number 7 pick in this draft. Although when you look at Oklahoma City, they have so many draft picks over the next 5 years. You're going to probably hit on one at some point that's going to bring them another really good player. But you're right. As a Cavs fan, I probably should be rooting for Philly to keep the pick and pair the number 7 pick with an injured Joel Embiid who may never play high level NBA basketball again, with an injured Paul George and with Tyrese Maxey, which I don't think moving forward the Cavaliers core is going to be frightened off by that particular team. So yeah, I think I should be rooting for the pick to go and stay with Philadelphia, but there's a huge part of me that wants to laugh at the Philadelphia 76ers and have them lose that pick, have them finish 6th, and then have some team jump them and they end up with the 7th pick and it has to be shipped off to the Thunder. That would be quite the that would be quite the experience as a Philadelphia 76ers fan. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. All right, Mike. So the Cleveland Cavaliers, the first quarter of the Cavs game is over. The Cavs have put up 45 points in the number 2 teams rated defense in the first quarter, Mike.
They needed
Now
a
they
few of those. They needed a few of those baskets against Orlando the other day.
now they've scored. Now they've given up 37. So they're not playing the best defense, but they're hitting a bunch of shots tonight. Hunter just hit 2 threes down the stretch in the first quarter. So let's hope that they continue to play that way. If they score 100, well, I was really mad because they scored 60 points in the first half last against Orlando, and then they didn't get my free fries for me. The heck, guys, get to that 120 point. Give me those free fries, Mike. Give me those free fries. Get the dub. Make me a happy man.
That was the worst shooting game. I was at that game, by the way. It was the
Oh,
worst shooting game that I've seen them play,
well,
I think, all
listen.
year. They couldn't make
Did you
anything.
go with was Cal there?
It was me, Cal, and his roommate for next year, David from Greece. We took him to his first NBA
Oh,
game ever. So
oh yeah.
shout out to David.
Yeah, well, that was a
First
bad
NBA
game to
game.
take them to. You got to take them
Well,
to a game against. If Cavs play Milwaukee in the playoffs, you got to bring them to watch Giannis, man.
he's a Lakers fan. He's a Lakers fan.
Wait a second. Wait a second. He's from Greece,
Yeah, but he's
and
a Lakers fan.
oh my
What
god.
team exports the best overseas? I'm sure it's the Lakers, right?
Yeah, I guess probably. I
Oh yeah,
guess.
he's a Lakers fan. So anyway, he wasn't nearly as upset about the result of the game as I was. So
Well, all right. Okay, so then the last injury for the week, Mike. Trey Murphy, New Orleans Pelicans. Now the Pelicans, I don't know. I mean, they basically like once again there was a game I went to a game earlier this year and they could barely suit a roster and they signed Alfred Payton and he literally started the same day he got signed. So and they're eliminated from the playoffs already. So they're tanking is already taken care of for them. Like Mike, that was an early pick in your draft pool, by the way. And New Orleans wins and they have 18 on the season. Mike, good job, buddy. Good, congrats on that one. That was a good pick. Um, uh, that might single-handedly lose you the draft pool. Uh, anyways, so I don't really think that this is a shutdown for tanking purposes because they're already tanked, right? This is just he's injured. There's no sense even being out there.
the rest of the season is just about trying to keep Zion healthy and either
So,
keep him healthy with the idea that you think you're going to keep him or keep him healthy with
so
the
to
idea
Zion
that you
play,
can trade
Mike,
him.
should he continue to play? Should he?
Yes, he's got to play. He has to play. Why would you shut him down? He has to play. He absolutely has to play.
I mean, my argument for him not playing would be you don't want him to get injured and you want him to be able to play at the first start of the season next year. Like I don't know, and I don't want him to get the 250 games.
Well, he's at 213 right now, so I feel pretty confident that he's getting to 250 unless he gets hit by a bus in the offseason.
Don't hey, listen.
He's gonna get to 250. I mean, if you're the Pelicans, you are abjectly horrible, and they have 18 wins, so they're currently have the fifth best odds to land the number one draft pick. I would guess that everybody in the NBA offices is hoping and praying that the number one pick doesn't go to New Orleans. Although if New Orleans could be healthy, which miracle of all miracles, you could, if you were to pair Cooper Flag with Zion, a couple of Dookies playing together.
Oh, that doesn't sound good.
No, I guess that doesn't. I guess it doesn't sound all that good. Anyway, look, Zion, he is what he is. At this point, he's an enigma where you have no idea what you're getting from him. He has to be able to put together 8 straight months of healthy basketball without being injured. He's still putting up 25, 7, and 7. He's shooting 56% from the floor. And when he plays basketball, he's very, very, very good. Let's put it that way. They just can't keep him on the floor and playing basketball for any significant stretch of time. So the Pelicans are a team that if they were to get healthy and stay healthy for an entire season, they are not the fifth worst team in the NBA. But when you're building your
That's a
franchise
big
around a
if,
guy,
Mike. It's a big
it
if.
is. When you're
Stay
building your
healthy.
franchise around a guy who can't stay healthy, you're subjecting yourself to the whims of injury every single season. And as we've talked about before, it will be interesting to see what New Orleans decides to do this offseason and whether or not Zion goes on the trading block. And if he does, what kind of return can you get for Zion? Because the reality is that you don't know what you can get out of him. And yet, at the same time, he's 24 years old. And a 24-year-old guy with his type of talent, if you could somehow keep him healthy and get him doing the right things and acting like a professional, we've talked about his talent over and over and over and over again. There will be a market for Zion Williamson. I don't know how big that market will be in terms of number of teams. I don't know what kind of package
Yeah.
you'll be able to get for him, but I would guess there would probably be more teams interested in him than we would think, and there probably would be a bigger package forthcoming than you might guess, just because his talent is so tantalizing.
Yep. All right. So those are the three big injuries, Mike. And I mean, I guess they're not really that big because none of those teams are making the playoffs. So, um, cross them off the list. All right. So the next thing we were going to talk about is the NBA all NBA teams, and I have my list, Mike.
Okay.
And I guess we're going to start with our first team, right? Because when we get to the third team, that's when we're going to have the question marks. And
yeah, I would say so.
okay, so I'm going to say my five that I have, and
Okay.
the NBA is not making you have positions this
Okay.
year.
That's
So
fine.
now that doesn't. I'll be honest with you, that doesn't affect this roster, and
Okay.
in my first team at least.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
so I have Shea. He's a shoe in.
Okay.
I got Jokic. He's a shoe in.
Okay.
I got Mitchell. He's a shoe in for me.
Okay.
Okay. I have Tatum. He's a shoe in for me.
Okay.
And then I have Giannis as my fifth spot.
Yeah, it's a given. I mean, I think those five, you can write it down. Barring one of those guys getting injured in the last 15 games and missing the cutoff of 65 games, I don't see any way, shape, or form that those aren't the five guys that are first team All NBA. There's just no case that you can make for anybody below them that they should supplant one of those guys on the first team.
Yep.
I don't even know who I would even attempt to make a case for. I don't really think there's anybody that I could legitimately make a case for and say, oh, that guy should be on the first team instead of one of those five guys. There just isn't anybody.
Yeah, I agree.
No way. There's no way. There's no way.
Okay. So listen, this is a good start, Mike. We agree.
Yeah, but I think you could talk to anybody who's watched any NBA this season and you would be hard pressed. Like it would be, to me, if you've been watching the league at all, to have anything but those five guys on your ballot as the first team, to me, just seems like it would be insane. I don't know how you could possibly.
I think the only name that I could have seen if he hadn't gotten hurt and he continued to play the way that he has been playing the last month and a half.
Yeah.
LeBron is the only one. I'm just saying, if he didn't get hurt, listen, it's already happened.
You still can't make a case. Who are you bumping off to put LeBron on there?
Giannis.
What?
Giannis.
How?
I don't know.
How?
I don't know.
Giannis is averaging like 31, 13, and 6. And carrying a team that beyond him and Damian Lillard is not good. Let's just leave it there. There is no possible way. You can make it. We'll see where you have LeBron. We'll see.
I have LeBron second, Mike. I have LeBron second team.
Okay.
My second team is this, and my second team is LeBron,
Okay.
Anthony Edwards,
Okay.
Mobley,
Okay.
Cade,
Okay.
and then I have Brunson with a question mark because we don't know how long he's going to be out and if he's going to miss the cutoff or not.
Okay.
So I'm going to if Brunson is in, then Brunson's here,
Okay.
in my opinion.
All
But
right.
I have LeBron here. I mean, there's no one that I would put over LeBron in this situation. Well, now once again, I don't have a center here, Mike. I don't have a center here. So if you're going to make the argument that I need a center here, then LeBron's I mean, I don't know. I guess I pretty much this is pretty guard heavy, right? Brunson, Cade, Anthony Edwards. He's a forward. Is Edwards considered a forward or a guard?
Edwards the guard.
Okay, so I've got 3 guards and then 2 forwards in this lineup. So you can tell me what you have different than me because you obviously don't have LeBron's second team. You're not going to like my.
I do have him second team, but I don't have him as a guy that I would even remotely consider for first team.
Okay.
So I have Ant. I have
Okay.
LeBron.
Okay.
I have Brunson.
Okay.
Then
you don't have Mobley. Get out of here. Get out of here.
I didn't
Get
say
out.
that. I didn't say that.
Well, you
have to let me.
you went. Well, you said. Well, you went. I have this guy. I have this guy. This guy. And you go, and then I have. So I didn't think you have Mobley second
You have
team.
to let me talk through the process. So now you're looking at the Mobley spot, right? So the guys that you have to consider in that spot for second team, I think, are Jaren Jackson, where Jaren Jackson is probably, well, I don't even know. Jaren Jackson and Mobley to me are very, very similar players.
Mobley just destroyed him. You just look at the head. That's what I'm doing. Gone.
That's fine.
Done.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm devil's advocating for Jaren Jackson just for a second. So Jaren Jackson Jr., former defensive player of the year. Mobley may win it this year, but Jackson's already won it. I'd say they are similar offensive players in that you're not building your offense around either one of those guys. Neither one of them, I would say, are tremendous 3-point shooters, although they both can make threes. Neither one of them is a guy that's going to be the centerpiece of your offense, but they both can be very good offensive players. So I think it's just a matter of which one of those two guys do you have a taste for? Since we're here in Cleveland, I think we would lean towards Evan Mobley, which obviously you did, and I think I did too. Then the other guy that you have to consider for second team, if you want to just look at the offensive end of the floor, what Karl-Anthony Towns has been able to do this year for the Knicks from an offensive standpoint. He's averaging like 24 and almost 14 rebounds a game. And he has fit in, at least offensively, way, way better than certainly I think you thought, than anybody thought that he would handle playing in New York, handle that pressure, being able to do what he's done offensively. Obviously, defensively, he has a lot of liabilities. So then if you go back to this conversation between Mobley, Jaren Jackson, and Towns, you look at Towns, who's clearly, at least in the regular season, a better offensive player than both Jackson and Mobley. However, I would say and argue that the gap between Towns on defense and those two guys on defense is much larger than the gap between Towns offensively and those other two guys offensively. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody says, well, I can build an offense around Karl-Anthony Towns. My answer to that would be, well, then your team's probably not very good. So I continue to maintain that trading for Karl-Anthony Towns was a mistake by the New York Knicks, despite the fact that he's played really well. The playoffs, I think, will tell the tale of what Karl-Anthony Towns is or will be, or the effect that he's going to have on the New York Knicks. So I went with Mobley as my second team guy as well. And then it comes down to that fourth spot or that fifth spot on the second team. And this was tough because I feel like there was a bunch of guys. I didn't really consider Jaren Jackson or Towns because I felt like the Mobley spot, one of those three guys had to get that spot. And then I don't feel like the other two, I didn't want to put one of those other two guys.
Yep.
So
So
they're
I'm
on there.
assuming
So then
those
you're
guys are
looking at
both on your third team then, right? Because they're on my third team.
they are going to be on my third team.
Okay.
And all right, so let me get so my fifth guy came down to I guess really three guys that I looked at really hard. So you look at the run that the Warriors have gone on since Jimmy Butler got there, and Steph has not been nearly at the level that he was when he was at his peak. He's been much more inconsistent. He's had many more games where he's 2 for 11 or 4 of 14 or whatever from three. He has not been nearly as consistent as he's been, but he's played much better over the last 15 game stretch as they've gone from a slightly below 500 team to a team that now is holding on to the sixth spot. Then I think the other guys that I considered, Cade, definitely one of them. When you look at the turnaround that Detroit has made and the fact that they're sitting in the right now the sixth seed, but they could very easily by 2 nights from now they could be the fourth seed in the Eastern Conference. Made me give him a lot of consideration. And then I think Jaylen Brown, although Jaylen Brown maybe has not had his best year, I still think when you look at the guys that he's competing against and you look at what his team does and what his team asks him to do, I still think Jaylen Brown, despite the fact that, yeah, he's the second best player, but he was the best player on the play on the Celtics during the playoffs and during the finals last year. Henceforth, he won the Eastern
You're gonna
Conference
cringe,
player.
Mike. You're gonna
What?
cringe. I don't even
Why's
have
that?
Jalen. I don't have Jalen Brown on my third team.
It's fine. I may not have him on my third team either. I'm just making a case for why you may want to consider him. So my guy that I'm going to go with, despite I'm going to go with the legacy pick and go with Steph Curry on my second team, just because,
Gross.
just because, just because I
Now,
feel like
Mike, I will say this though:
okay,
if Brunson's out of this, then Steph's going in my would be my guy.
okay,
I just feel
okay,
like
that's
Cade.
fine.
I feel like Cade deserves it. Just because. I mean, the Pistons. Listen, everyone thought the Pistons were going to be terrible this
Fine.
year, right? Like, no one had them performing at the level they're playing at.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree.
So that's what I'm going with. But you have a fair point.
That's fine.
All right. So for my third team, Mike, I have Jaren Jackson Jr. I have Karl Anthony Towns. I have Steph Curry. We've already established those three guys.
Okay.
Okay. I feel like Oklahoma City has to have another person on the team. And I'm going Jalen Williams as the, and then my last guy,
Interesting.
the last guy in my homer, I'm putting Garland on the third team. Because it has shown his impact, the better, you know, the games he's had when Mitchell's been out, the way he's playing is the way that we all thought Garland was going to play last year until he broke his jaw. He's playing he's playing way freer. I think, I think defensively he's not been nearly as bad as he used to be. Is he still the best defender? He's either the best defender, no, but he's playing hard. And just in the non-Donovan Mitchell minutes, he's efficient. His clutch performance, he's leading like one of the top scorers in the fourth quarter. We could have used him a little more on Sunday, but in the clutch, he's huge. His statistics across the board are fantastic, and I just feel like he deserves it. So I'm going to put him on the third team. And I know he probably isn't a third teamer. That's just
he has a chance. He has a chance. I don't know that
I think Brunson being Brunson or
into having an opportunity.
Brunson or LeBron being out, Mike, would get Garland a really, really, really good shot, I think.
Could give him an opportunity. We'll talk about guys that we left off here in a second. So, third team, Jaren Jackson, we already talked about. Karl Anthony Towns, kind of got a whole offensively what he's done, should be on there. Cade, you made a good case for him being a second team. I'm not going to argue with your case that you made when you look at the turnaround that Detroit has made. You can pin a large majority of that on Cade Cunningham and what he's been able to do this year. I have Darius Garland as well on the
Oh,
third team, just because I think when you look at it, I'm not sure, and we'll talk about who I'm comparing him to. We'll leave that for a second. And so then it comes down to that fourth spot. So the one guy that I've already talked about, Jaylen Brown, was a possibility. Talk about the Celtics and should they only have one guy in the top 15, just the same way that you talked about Jalen Williams. Is Jalen Williams a better player than at this stage of their career? I would argue not, is what I would probably argue. Let's compare the statistics between those two guys just for curiosity's sake. So if we look at, let's see, let's go to Jaylen Brown first. Jaylen Brown is averaging 23 a game, 5 rebounds. No, sorry, 6 rebounds, almost 5 assists. And he is shooting, let's see, Jaylen Brown shooting 45% from the floor, only 31% from three. So again, certainly not a great Jaylen Brown season. He's an important player for the what right now somewhere between the first and the third best team in the NBA. Then you look at Jalen Williams, and Jalen Williams is currently averaging 21, 5.5 rebounds, 5.5 assists. So pretty similar there across the board. Jalen Williams shooting 47% from the floor, a little bit better, 36% from three, a little bit better than Jaylen Brown. So there's a good argument to be made that Jalen Williams ahead of Jaylen Brown is a good choice. I think the guy I want to look at a statistical case. The guy that you really have to look at is Kevin Durant. And I know that we can
no,
talk about what a dumpster
he's a
fire.
cross off immediately for the effort and his arguments and his apathy and his Twitter engagements with people after games. And I was out. He wasn't even a consideration. He's not even an honorable mention on my list, Mike.
Okay, can I read you Durant's stats?
You can read me his stats all you want. He's still not an honorable mention.
Okay. So Kevin Durant this season is playing 37 minutes a game. He's averaging 26 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, shooting 52% from the floor, 42% from three, 83% from the line. So statistically, what Kevin Durant is doing is dwarfing anybody else that you're going to even remotely consider for that last. Yet at the same time, I feel like when it comes to the All NBA, that you have to take into account some degree of winning has to be a possibility. Any consideration for Dame Lillard?
No, didn't even think about him.
What if it came down to Lillard and Lillard and Garland?
Who would I rather have on my team right now? Is that your question?
Just throwing it out there. So Dame Lillard, 25 a game, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, shooting 45% from the floor, 38% from three, 92% from the line.
I mean, compare his
in,
stats to Donovan Mitchell's, Mike, because Donovan Mitchell's playing 28 minutes a game.
We're not comparing him to Donovan Mitchell.
But I'm just asking. I'm saying Dame's stats compared to Donovan Mitchell are probably almost better than Donovan Mitchell's stats.
Probably. I'm just throwing out guys that.
Well, and I'm countering. Okay, Mike. With
fine.
you got if we're going to strictly base it on stats, then we base it on stats. I'm eye testing this. Okay, my eye test is right. I would rather have Garland on my team than Dame Lillard. We've played Milwaukee 4 times and we've beaten them 4 times, and in none of those games did Dame Lillard make me think, oh my God, we're going to lose this game because of Dame Lillard.
All right. Can I interest you in some James Harden?
Well, listen, I was going to go there he's on my list, Mike. He's on my list of honorable mentions. I would much rather have James Harden. Listen, when we joke, listen, I'm an equal opportunity, but if a guy is performing at a level that we're gonna compliment him. We're gonna compliment him. He played the first half of the season without Kawhi, basically. You know, Kawhi was in and out, and he's completely adapted to this role. And whether it's because Ty Lue is that good of a coach, which we can talk. I think Ty Lue is a good coach, or Harden's just finally accepted the fact. I mean, he's still pretty ball dominant, but he does really, really, really good things with the basketball until he just airballed a shot over Mobley, literally as I'm saying that.
Harden's problem right now is he's not as efficient as he was at his peak. So he's averaging 22 a game, 6 rebounds, almost 9 assists, but he's shooting below 40% from the field and below 35% from three. So he's just not nearly as efficient. But to your point, Harden has definitely been the guy that has driven the Clippers offense without question.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, DeAndre Hunter so far tonight, 6 of 6 from the field for 15 points.
All right, there we go. If only he wouldn't hit the side of the backboard and pull the pandemic P against the Magic.
When he did that, I immediately said pandemic P.
Oh yeah, everybody. I think anybody who's anybody thought the same thing. All right, so other guys, Pascal Siakam,
Nah,
Halliburton.
No.
I think remember when we had the discussion between Halliburton and Darius Garland?
That was an idiotic conversation.
Well, it wasn't at the time that we had it, but I think most people would have clearly said Halliburton at the time we had that discussion. And you and I continued to, at least to some degree, try to stick up for Darius Garland. It certainly looked like that with Garland's injuries and the struggles that he had last year and the blazing start that Halliburton got off to. It was easy to see why people might have thought that Halliburton had surpassed Garland, and that's certainly the trajectory of their careers would have favored Halliburton last September, October. But as it stands now, I don't think there's any question that Garland's ahead. So Halliburton was one of the stats to see where they were at. Booker falls into the same category as Durant, where it's not the greatest Devin Booker season, but still statistically, he's been not as good maybe as Devin Booker has been in the past, but certainly a guy that you can at least throw out there. If you were going to go with 3 centers, your boy Şengün probably would have got a look. If you were going pure,
get out of here, Şengün, get out of
here. Pure centers.
After what he did to the Cavs, he wasn't even making my list, man.
I know. I'm just saying, pure centers.
Chucking guys, no way.
Pure centers. All right. So my last spot comes down to Jaylen Brown versus Kevin Durant. I have reasons to dislike choosing either one of those two guys. I don't think either one of them has had their best career season, which clearly for Durant is understandable at his age. Jaylen Brown hasn't necessarily followed up his playoff performance with a peak of his powers Jaylen Brown season. As much as it pains me, I'm going to go with the legacy pick, and my last spot on All NBA is going to go to Kevin Durant, which I would.
Well, see, if I was down to those two guys, I'd give it to Jaylen Brown. Like,
that's fine. I would expect that Kevin Durant, when the voting comes in, Kevin Durant is going to be on an All-NBA team based on his statistics. I would be stunned if just because he's Kevin Durant combined with the statistics, if he's not on the actual All-NBA team, I'll be very surprised. Although, like I said, I could see easily where he would not or could not or maybe should not make it, but I had him as my last guy in the mix. I don't think there's anybody else that really is worthy of being talked about other than the guys that we mentioned. There's nobody else that really, everybody else that you might have thought of are guys that are missing because of injury. Wemby obviously would have been on a team if Zion was healthy for 80 games and the Pelicans were at 500 and he was putting up the statistics that he's putting up. Zion could get some consideration. Obviously, Luka can't be considered because of the games that he's missed.
What about Ja Morant, Mike?
I don't think Ja's going to qualify either.
He missed. Oh yeah, he missed all those games. I forgot.
He's missed a ton of games. Let me see where he's at in terms of games played. Ja Morant, games played. He's played in 43 games, so
Yeah.
he's not gonna qualify. Yeah. And Ja Morant is, when you look at him compared to some of the other guards we've talked about, he's at 22 a game, 4 rebounds, 7.5 assists, 44% from the field, 29% from three. I think there's a more compelling case for whether it's Garland, Dame, Cade. I think all those guys have a much stronger case than does Ja Morant, and he doesn't have enough games. So there's really, like I said, if you look at the teams and go through, there's really nobody else that you would say is going to have. Let's just quickly the teams that we haven't talked about. Anybody from Atlanta? Trae Young's not going to get any consideration. Paolo and Franz both didn't play enough games. Nobody from the Bulls, nobody from the Heat, nobody from the Raptors, nobody from Philly, nobody from Brooklyn, nobody from Charlotte, nobody from the Wizards. Houston.
Wizards, come on, Jordan Poole hit that big game winner the other day.
There you go.
Come on, man.
Şengün, Amen Thompson, those guys aren't probably all NBA. Like I said, if you had a traditional third team center, maybe Şengün could sneak in there, but otherwise, no. Denver, I don't think anybody but Jokic has really had an all NBA type season.
Russ's takeover yesterday.
Yeah. Lakers, we've already talked about. AD probably would have been under consideration, but again, he's not going to play enough games. Nobody else for the Warriors, nobody else for the Grizzlies, nobody else from Minnesota, nobody from the Clippers. I guess Norm Powell, maybe you could throw some consideration at him if he was healthy. But I think Norm Powell has played, how many games has Norm Powell played? He's only played 47, so
he's leading the team in scoring.
He's not going to be eligible probably if he misses another game or two. Sabonis, I don't think people are seriously considering him, and obviously nobody from the bottom of the barrel out west. I think we hit on all the names. You really go through the exercise, it's hard to imagine. I guess maybe if the national media really likes Dame or really likes Devin Booker, I mean, it's hard to imagine that. I think Garland's got a decent shot to make it, I guess is my point.
Yep.
So we'll see.
All right.
There it is. We did it.
Cavs are up 5.5, 73-68, Mike. So we're strapped in for a second half. I'm going to see if I'll make it through the second half after we podcast tonight. Strap in.
See what I can do. Yeah, I'll see what I can do. If I can, while I'm doing the work, I should be able to. If the game doesn't distract me while we're doing it. So.
All right.
Be a good way to start the road trip with a win.
All right. So, Mike, do you want to talk about these other teams? We're at 53 minutes right now. Do you want to?
Let's spend 2 minutes, no more than 2 minutes. So we're going to be done before 60 minutes is up. Let's just look at the two sections of the standings that we talked about beforehand. So let's first look at the Eastern Conference slots 4, 5, and 6. You have Milwaukee, Indiana, Detroit. I don't know what to make of this particular triumvirate of teams. I think if I'm the Cavs,
which team? Okay, here's the question: which team do you want? If they were the Cavs, which of these do you want them to play? That's the way I want to look at it. In the second round,
I think you want to play Detroit just because of the lack of experience. I think you least want to play Milwaukee. I think Indiana, it feels like the last 2 years have given the Cavs some challenge, and I don't think that the Indiana or Milwaukee series would necessarily be an easy series where the Cavs are going to win those games all in blowouts. I would at least want to see Milwaukee just because you have the potential of a Giannis game, 2 Giannis games, a Dame game, 2 Dame games, and all of a sudden you're looking at, wow, Dame had 46 this game and Giannis had 2 games where he scored 40.
What's crazy is this might come down to the last 2 games of the season. Because the Pistons and the Bucks play a home and home their last 2 games. I mean, home court could be decided. Like those games might actually matter. Like in the way that it's currently constructed, and the Pistons have a pretty easy next 2 games. Minus they play the Cavs once, but they have a pretty they have a they have a pretty nice looking schedule, at least for that point. Then you look at Indiana's schedule. Um, they also like they're playing some bad teams right now. This is Indiana's next 5 games: the Mavericks, the Nets, the Timberwolves, and the Lakers, the Wizards. Okay, and then they play the Hornets, the Jazz, the Wizards again. Man, they play some really bad teams. The Pacers do. The rest of the year. They have their last 3 games are Cavs, Magic, Cavs, and but here's the deal: the Cavs might at that point be done. Like there might be just be like hands free. Like that last game, Cavs are certainly in. Like and we can maybe frame this part too. Are they gonna try to chase the best record in the NBA, or are they just gonna try to keep themselves healthy? I think ideally you would like to have the best record in the NBA, but I also think that if I'm the Cavaliers, I'm more concerned about getting staying healthy and also understanding that yes, Oklahoma City Thunder are the number 1 seed in the West, but there's a very good chance that they aren't going to come out of the West because and I wouldn't worry about them. I think if you're the Cavs and you have the second best record in the NBA and the only team that's got a better record than you is Oklahoma City Thunder, I go into the playoffs with a pretty good mindset.
I
And
disagree with you. And I'm not saying that the Cavs should suddenly start playing their starters playoff minutes in order to get that number 1 seed. But if it comes down to the last 2, 3 games of the regular season and it's within a game either way of having the best record or not having the best record, and the Cavs punt away the last game, the second last game, the third last game, if they don't try to secure that number 1 seed, because here's why. You can say that, yeah, the odds are that Oklahoma City may not get out of the Western Conference, which maybe is true. I guess if you gave me Oklahoma City or the field in the Western Conference, I would certainly take the field. But there's still a decent chance that Oklahoma City gets through. And for me, it comes down to you only get so many chances to legitimately contend for a title. And this season, the Cavs are legitimately, at this point, contending for a title. And so if I had the opportunity to secure home court advantage, especially in this case against Oklahoma City, a team that I guess by the time they get to the finals, they'll be a little bit more playoff experienced, but still a young team coming into the finals for the first time, same way the Cavs would be. I feel like it would be a pretty nice advantage to have in your back pocket to be able to have home court. So, look, I don't want the Cavs over the last 10 games to suddenly start playing their starters 42 minutes a game so they can have the best record. But I also don't want them to say, we've got the best record in the East wrapped up. Let's just punt on these last 5 games and sit 2 of our starters for each of the last 5 games and just rotate that amongst our rotation. I want them to keep playing and I want them to keep winning because I think you only get so many chances to win a title. And if you have home court advantage, it's just one more thing that gives you that slight edge, that slight leg up on a potential finals opponent. Yeah, it's not relevant with anybody except Oklahoma City, but if it is Oklahoma City and you punt on the last 3 games of the regular season and that costs you the number 1 overall seed and home court advantage in the finals, that to me would be not a disaster, but I feel like you'd be giving up an advantage that you would do so unnecessarily, if that makes any sense.
okay, makes sense. All right, we've already gone past our 2 minutes of the Eastern Conference spike,
All
so
right,
we're doing a good
West.
job.
All right, let's go to the West.
The West. So once again, we're looking at the same numbers and same 4, 5, 6.
Well,
Um,
two. You got two. You got Houston and Denver, who are tied right now for second. And then you have the Lakers and Memphis, who are tied right now for fourth. I think those 4 teams, we talked about this last week. I think it's going to be hard for Golden State or Minnesota, who both lost last night, well, by the way, Minnesota loses to a team that in Indiana that was sitting out Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam, and Golden State loses to Denver, who was sitting out Jokic and Murray. So terrible losses for those two teams who each could have A, made up ground on each other, and B, made up some ground on the teams in front of them in the standings. So I think we can safely say that Golden State and Minnesota are going to finish in 6-7. Although our Clippers that we're playing tonight are only one game back of both of those teams. But I don't know. I don't trust the Clippers. And I still can't take this team all that seriously. So I think Golden State and
I
Minnesota
wouldn't
are
want
going
to,
to
Mike, but I
finish.
wouldn't want to play them. And if I'm the 1 seed, if I'm Oklahoma City, Clippers.
I agree with you there. Okay, I agree with you there.
I
If the Cavs, if you flip the Cavs to the Western Conference, and you said the Cavs 1-8 series is going to be the LA Clippers, I wouldn't be all that excited about that as a number 1 seed. Look, the Clippers are going to have a lot of playoff experience between their two most important players, and if Kawhi is healthy,
mean, I'd rather play the Clippers than Minnesota. Or I mean, I would rather play. I don't know. Would you rather play Clippers or Minnesota? If I'm Oklahoma City after
I
last
think
season.
I think I'd probably rather play the Clippers, but I don't know that there's any matchup in the Western Conference that I would love. I mean, I think honestly, if I look up and down the 1 through 8, I mean, clearly, if I could play Sacramento or Dallas or Phoenix, great in round one. But I think I'd rather play Memphis or Houston, in all honesty, regardless of where those teams finish.
Oh, I'm not afraid of Memphis. I'm not afraid of them at all.
That's what I'm
They're not.
saying. Like, I think if you're Oklahoma City, you might be like, hey, Houston's the number 2 seed. You might, if you go back to the old, let the number 1 seed, let the higher seeds pick their matchups. Now that's an interesting exercise. I
Oh,
think
Mike.
Oklahoma City.
Next week, let's have that exercise next week. We'll
Let's
tease it.
do that. Let's do that next week. I like that. I like that exercise. Let's save that for next week. But look, I think that Golden State and Minnesota to me are locked into the 6-7 in some order, and then I fully expect Denver is going to get the 2 seed. I still think the Lakers are going to fall as LeBron continues to sit out, although none of those teams have really taken advantage, and the Lakers
Oh,
have
I
won a
thought you were going
couple
to say,
games.
although he was dancing on the sideline of his son's state
He was
championship game.
he was dancing for Bryce's state title, but I expect it to go. In all honesty, I think it finishes Denver 3. I'm sorry, Denver 2, Houston 3, Memphis 4, the Lakers 5. That's how I expect it to end.
Okay. I mean, I have no clue how that's going to end. The only thing I know is Oklahoma City's in, baby,
There you go.
and New Orleans
That's
and
it.
Utah are out.
All right. Well, good job reading the standings. I like it. All right. Let's let's leave it there. We're gonna go check out the second half of the Cavs Clippers game while Mike does some editing and Jason tries to stay awake. So thank you for checking out tonight's NBA episode, and we will catch you next week. We appreciate you listening, and thanks.
All right. Good work, Mike.
All right.
I'm definitely out at 8:30 tomorrow. Do we have an 8:30 and a 10 tomorrow, or just?
So my 8:30 canceled on me today. Um, then I had another guy who was sick that canceled out a couple weeks ago, so I texted him, and he said he's in,